We're live on YouTube. And we are live on Zoom. I'm going to start recording. Okay, we are good to go.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:21 p.m. And we will do roll call. Abiana? Here. Gutierrez Polari?
Here.
Papua?
Here.
Owens?
Here.
And Rudolph, present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I need a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Superintendent Pittman, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Awesome. Okay. Item 4 is consent, is the data study session, and I'd like to hand it over to Superintendent Pittman.
Thank you. So I have a brief presentation that I'm going to share to walk you through what's called the data zone and the data that we collect as a district through the state and that we will be able to have access to so we can start comparing data over time and making informed decisions on how we serve our students, both academically and social and emotional. And then once I am done with the presentation, I will show you ours. We will not dive into, I'll show you how teachers will be able to access it. But from a board perspective, we're looking at global, we're looking at big picture. And then we'll talk about different pieces of information that you would like me to present as we go throughout the year. Okay, so it says Santa Clara County Office of Education, and that is because they are the organization that started what's called the data zone. We have a joint partnership with them through the San Mateo County Office of Ed. And there are several of the districts within San Mateo County, along with Santa Clara County, that access the data zone. This happens to be their vision is impact, equity, diversity, inclusion, and partnership. But investing for impact, which is quite interesting, I think, just because our focus this year that we started out at the beginning of the year with was about impact. Our goal or our theme for the year is that all the decisions that we're making are having an impact on the lives of our children, the lives of our families, and they're having an impact on us as well. So we're making sure that the decisions that we're making are a two-way street. So it seemed to fold in together well. So student success and continuous improvement. So this is something that is done in business, is done in education, where you set your goals, you plan, you act, you assess, and then you reflect and adjust. And there's different ways, you know, in education, we call it plan, do, study, act. There's different elements, but the idea is you work that cycle and you continually work that cycle over and over throughout the year. And through that, you get student success, ideally. That's the hope. And in order to get student success, you have to use data. We can't just go on a hunch. We can't just assume that we're meeting it. We have to collect data along the way. And that data looks different depending upon what you want to assess. And so in terms of the data zone, they have certain data principles that they follow in terms of thinking about the data that they're holding. So the purpose of student data should be used to further student learning and success. So this is one of their core principles. Student data are most powerful when used for continuous improvement and personalizing student learning, knowing that students are all at different places, humans are all at different places. So we want to make sure that we're constantly looking at continuous improvement for each individual student, and then it's personalized. Student data should be used as a tool for informing, engaging, and empowering students, families, teachers, and school system leaders. Again, it's a piece of information. So we want to see what that information is that will then help us to move forward and make any adjustments if necessary. Students, families, and educators should have timely access to information collected about the student. This piece of information is, this principle is key because that's why you can't rely just on state tests. Because that's one data point and it happens in the spring, and then you wait till the next spring to see. And that's just too long of a time to determine if what you're doing needs to be tweaked and if it's working or not working. And then student data should be used to inform, not to judge, and not replace the professional judgment of educators, because it's just one piece of information. And again, it's meant to inform. So when we look at some of our data, we want to make sure that we're using it to inform the decisions that we're making. We're not placing blame. We're not judging people. We're saying this is where we are. And so how do we do something different, or how do we continue to do what we've been doing in order to keep our trajectory going? So Data Zone is a data warehouse. So that means they have the data, yes. So it's test scores, attendance, enrollment, and I will actually go through all the different pieces of data that they have. But it's also an analytics platform that provides teachers and leaders with valuable student data. And that's what I'm going to show you is how the data analytics looks. Because you can have this warehouse, just think about a regular warehouse that you walk into and it could be filled with a whole bunch of things. But if it's not organized and presented in a way to where you actually understand what the data is telling you, then it just becomes a warehouse filled with information. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Well, how does the Data Zone work? So they take our district data, which comes from our school information system. It comes from our state assessments. We don't have college assessments, but we do have local assessment data. They put it into their data warehouse. It sits on the Data Zone server. We have signed an agreement with them that information is not shared. It is private between us and them. That is, it's our data. They don't share it with anybody else. And it's meant for us to see and to use, but they presented it in a way to where we can actually use the information.
So although there's a partnership with Santa Clara and San Mateo, is it just district only shared information?
Yes.
So another district, even within San Mateo County, does not have access.
Does not
to
have access to us. The only way that they can have access to our information is if we say yes. So for example, we might sign a data sharing agreement with Jefferson Union because we want to share our data with them when our 8th graders go up to 9th
Sure.
grade. But San Mateo Foster City does not have access to us. Brisbane does not have access to us. We don't have access to them. It's all very private and kept isolated. So they call this the ABCs of Data Zone. So these are the data that they collect. So we have attendance, we have behavior, course performance, enrollment, early warning indicators, and then they have a social emotional learning survey, which I am asking them more information about so that we can give that as well. And I'll go into that a little bit later.
That's a survey for the students to
Yes.
take?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes. So this is what the dashboard looks like. This is a sample. Obviously, this is not Bayshore. We don't have 37 schools. Ours will say one, and I'll show you ours. They have 14,000 students, but this is the summary dashboard. And so this shows you the number of schools, the number of students. This is the number of enrolled students by grade, so you can see what it looks like across the grade spans. The percentage of attendance year to date. If there are any incidences that have to do with discipline. And then daily excused versus unexcused absences for the last 60 days. So that's on the front page, and I'll show you ours when we get to that. They also have enrollment, so you can see they do enrollments by ethnicity. So we can see what our breakdown looks like. They have discipline and behavior dashboards that's also broken down by ethnicity, which then converts to discipline disproportionality. So if you have a small number of a certain ethnicity, but they have the highest number of discipline incidences, then that shows that it's disproportionate. And then there's an academic dashboard. In this particular one, they're showing grade distribution by content. So For us, we're not quite there yet because our grades are standards based. So I'm working with them. All of their academic dashboards for grades right now are alpha grades. They're A, B, C, D's, and F's. And so they have to write a back-end program in order to convert it to ours. And so that's still a work in progress for us. Then there's the attendance dashboard. So this shows chronic absenteeism. So you can see green is satisfactory attendance, whereas red would be severe chronic absence. Who are students needing additional attendance support? So then they pull this attendance patterns changed over time, because you can see that's from 2017-18 all the way over to 2021. So we can see if we're getting better with our attendance or if we're getting worse. Are kids now not coming to school? Did something happen that we need to address? And then it would take this year and it would say, well, of these students that are yellow and orange and red that are at risk, moderate chronic absent or severe chronic absent, it pulls them over and says who they are. You would then be able to click on that to find out, we would be able to click on that to find out what students fall into those categories.
I'm surprised that's not in different ethnicities.
It's available in different
It
ethnicities.
is?
Yes, yes. So then the drill down is, as I said, here's the summary data. And then if I were to click on it, then I could actually get a list of students who might have a chronic absenteeism. Then I could click on one individual student who may be sitting in my class if I was the teacher, and I would be able to see all of the pieces of data that I have on that one student in one place. I would see that student's attendance, if they have any discipline incidences, what their cumulative GPA is, what their ELA SBAC scores are, what their math SBAC scores are. And so this gives us an opportunity to actually look at the whole child. We would then be able to look at if we gave the SEL survey, that could be in there as well.
Would parents have access to this information?
They do not at this point. This is for us to use information,
Okay.
but I do anticipate that this is something that, when we do our timeline, that this could be a piece of information that when we do parent-teacher conferences, the teacher could have this pulled up for the student, and this could show a big picture when they're meeting with the parents, talk about what's going on in class and how it's reflected in these overall pieces of data.
Is there a section on there for IEPs?
Yes.
This is so similar to what the early learning is having, the desired results, the DRTP. And it's broken down in all the areas and the percentage and where your title is, at level. So I'm hoping that the early learning, the preschool too is using the DRT, because so that way when they get to this,
Right.
it's similar to their eyes.
So our preschoolers' information is in this because they are from our SIS, and we also do the DRP. And so I will make sure that I ask them if the DRTB is uploaded, how do we get that uploaded as well, so that we can include that information as well. So then to Joy's question regarding if they have an IEP, yes, so that falls under program. So on this particular slide, you can see that they also break down our LCAP performance levels overall. They all will have our iReady scores in one place, and then our SBAC scores. And then they will also have by special ed. So I'll show you that when we go to Bayshore's information. So what does this mean for Bayshore and where we are right now? So by the end of October, I will ensure that all data is clean, that the data matches what we show on our end. We'll present various data pieces to the board throughout the year. And we'll use overall data to guide decisions around interventions and support for teachers around small group instruction. So how can they use this information? How can they either heterogeneously or homogeneously group children to support them to grow, or do individual instruction? Our coaches, by January, will have access to data zone and overall data for the school, and they'll use the data to support teachers in instructional strategies and small group instruction with the students in their specific classrooms. And then teachers, by January, will have access to data zone and their specific students. They will enter their Fountas and Pinnell data directly into the data zone, because right now they're entering it in the Google and we have to transfer that over. So eventually that'll be in there as well. And then they will be able to use data zone to gain information on individual students and groups of students within their classes. So this is the data that we're specifically putting into the warehouse and that we're using the analytics for. Obviously our attendance data, Program data is specifically around English learners and special education. Our academic data is the SBAC, which is the state assessment, our iReady numbers, and then we will eventually have our Fountas and Pinnell reading levels in there as well. Discipline data will include referrals, reasons for referrals, suspensions, and then SEL survey data. So I'm inquiring with them what their SEL survey looks like for students. If there's a family component, what's the price? The last time we spoke, the one organization I looked into was close to $7,000. I don't know what theirs is, but they know we have less than 400 students. So I'm going to negotiate something because I think it would be great if we could use a survey that they already have, that they've been analyzing. And it's a research, it's based on research, it uses the castles like we've been using. Our equity survey that we're going to be sending out next week to you, to families, to staff members, and to students. I'm working with them to see if we can get that information uploaded to here as well, as a piece of our own local data. And then also researching the California Healthy Kids Survey, because we give that every other year. It would be great if it was in one place as well, because the whole purpose of this is to have one place where we can see all the information. Because prior to using this, I'd have to go to Ms. Bowman and say, Ms. Bowman, can you print me a list of how many kids are designated as English learners? And then she'd go to her SIS. And then I'd say, okay, can you go to Swiss and find out how many? And I'd have to cross-reference. And that works okay when you have less than 400 kids, but that's not really ideal. I shouldn't be spending time cross-referencing lists. I should be able to go and say, okay, how can I look for all the kids who have high chronic absenteeism, that have discipline referrals, and are English learners? And then if I put in those filters, it'll give me a list of the one child or the 20 children.
So in the student profile, when you open it up, will you be able to indicate, have access to their IEP and any resources that they have associated?
We can't put the IEP in there because that's private information.
To indicate that they have.
It indicates that they have an IEP, yes.
Okay.
So, and all of our teachers will know that. But we do not put the IEP in there because they need to go and access it from the teacher, the RSP teacher that serves them. Yes. Then let me change so I can make sure that all attendees can see what I'm looking at. So,
Would you say this will be available on our website, not individually, but as a whole school?
what I can do is I can take snapshots of the overall data and I can put that on our website. We would not put this because this is live and it drills
Right.
down to individual students. But yes, so that's something that we can talk about tonight. If there are key components that you want me to take a snapshot of our attendance or our enrollment over time by ethnicity, I can download that graph and I can put that on our website so people can see this is what the ethnicity breakdown is at Bayshore. Yes, absolutely. So as you can see, this is what the summary is for Bayshore. So for privacy purposes, oops, I don't know what happened. For privacy purposes, I am only going to show big picture data. I'm not going to drill down, okay? But what you can see is we have one school. We have 349 students. Currently, our attendance is at 95.01%. We've had 0 incidences that have been uploaded. Number of enrolled students by grade. So you can see that and if you hover over it, it lights it up for you. So 8th grade is 38, 7th grade is 38, 6th grade is 38, preschool is 26. So you can see that each one shows by grade. This is our daily excused versus unexcused absences over the last 60 days. This is the number of offenses by year. So 1920, we didn't have any last year because of COVID. It's a beautiful thing, right? Final marks by grading period. I said that's what we're working on because right now they only do alpha. And so we want to talk to them about doing standards based and how that can appear there as well. Okay. Then you can go to local assessments. And eventually we'll have our FMP in there, but you can see they have iReady. And if I do ELA, we're gonna be patient. So then the overall score comes up for ELA. And if you notice, there's a fall, there's a winter, and there's a spring. Because we're gonna give this again before winter break, and we're gonna give it in March. So then we're gonna be able to see how this shifts. And ideally, what's gonna happen is that this blue at the top and the orange get bigger and the purple gets smaller as the year goes on. And then the same holds true for math as well.
So what color should we be concerned at?
Purple is 3 or more grade levels below.
So,
Whoops. See, this is why I don't want to put them.
well, that's the overall, it doesn't tell us what grade, what class is that?
If I clicked on it and it actually told me the list of the students.
Oh, okay, we don't want that.
No. I do, so that we know. And then what that does for me is it also tells me school-wide. Then I can go class by class.
Right.
And so then here's overall by grade. So you can see it's broken down from first. And then we'll go into winter and then we'll go into spring.
Jesus.
Then they take the overall ELA and they break it down by the strands. So you can see we look specifically at phonics.
So 6 and 7, hold on.
Hello,
6 and 7.
Hi.
We're at 56 and
I'm in
50.
the school board meeting.
We're up on the,
Yes.
Okay, where
So
you-
again, this is a snapshot. So
Mhm.
we're collecting this information because we don't know, this is the beginning of the year.
How come?
They've spent 18 months at home.
right,
and so this is-
Okay,
this is
it's around what, 10 or something? Okay, thanks for calling. Call your mom. Bye.
So then it just tells us where we are. We don't know what leads us to this. And
So
so,
I'm curious to see what winter and spring
yes,
will be.
absolutely. So what's happening is the teachers have their individual class data. And so then they're using that information to do small group instruction. And then we'll give it again in the winter and see if what they're doing is working and if we need to make adjustments. Do we need to do other interventions? How do we want to address this to ensure that our kids are getting closer to being on or above grade?
There was one grade, the blue.
Just a quick product question.
Yes.
Which goes, it was, I don't remember if it was Joy or Teresa that brought up. How customizable do we have control? So is there a report writing tool in here that we can create our own reports if we wanted to, or do we have to go back to them and say, hey, we want this data to be sorted this way?
So certain filters.
There are filters in there so that I can go through and select the filters that I want, and then it'll tell me the groups of kids that fall into those categories.
Okay.
Yes. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, I guess because depending on how the data is sorted,
Right.
you could create joins on different tables if it's in different
Yes,
tables.
and you
then
can do that through the filters.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So let's say that you want to see the students who are 3 or more years below grade level,
Mhm.
have a high chronic absenteeism.
Yeah.
Because let's say that we've got 50 kids that are 3 or more grades below, right? And then we find out out of those 50 kids that 40 of them are chronic absenteeism. Then that tells us, well, first thing we need to do is get them into school. That's the first thing we need to address. Now, if that was reversed and we've got 50 kids who are 3 years below and they've got perfect attendance, then it's something different that we need to address. So yes, you can put in filters so that you can find out that information.
Okay.
Yes, yes. And keep in mind, this is the first year that we're going to be utilizing this. And so I'm going to be reaching out to my colleagues in other districts who've been using this, whether they're in Santa Clara or San Mateo, that have been using this to find out what's the best way that you use this so that we can get the most out of it as we continue to analyze this data. Because data is information, and then how you use it is what makes us better.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
So the next step then is, and I appreciate you guys asking questions as we're going. Are there any pieces of information that I didn't share with you or pieces of data that you think we should have in here. Or you want to know if it is in here and I just didn't show it to you.
Yeah, I kind of have some just clarifying questions.
Yes.
On slide.
I'm sorry, they're not numbered.
No, that's okay. It was one of the dashboard slides. Yeah, the analytics dashboard, and it says number of incidents.
Yes,
What defines an incident? And then
Any-
later on in that slide, like later on, we were talking about like discipline data referrals.
Yes.
So is a referral equal to an incident?
yes.
And then what do we consider a referral?
So we're working through that right now. So that's what Mrs. Baker talked about at the last one in terms of those regroup and refresh.
Yeah,
And so she's working with them because we do it a different way than other ways. You know, other high schools have a referral. And if I'm sending you to the office, then that ends up in the student information system as an incident. It could be chewing gum. It could be,
Are those filters available there for?
they will be. She's in the process of
Oh,
working,
so you guys will edit those in
Yes.
yourself?
so that they reflect us,
Okay.
so that they are specific to Bayshore. Yes.
okay, because I mean, as far as like the regroup and refresh, I know that there's that, and then I know that there's the effort in order for the teacher to develop a better relationship with the student, the
Right.
teacher's encouraged to be the first point of contact.
Yes,
in
so there,
resolution.
if
Is
I'm,
that documented anywhere?
it's documented in the classroom, is never gonna be documented in our
It's not
school
gonna-
information system, and it's not gonna be in there.
Okay,
But we may document that someplace else in terms of, for example, if I have an individual in my classroom that I have been addressing what's been going on numerous times, I'm keeping track of that, so that when it gets to the point where I need to do a refresh and regroup and refer the child to the office, because I need more support, then it will reflect all of the things that I have done. But it's not gonna show up as 10 incidences for that child.
okay.
Oh, what about here it says act, if that can be,
I'm sorry, say that again?
so on this part right here.
Uh-huh,
It says set goals, plan, act,
yes,
assess. Can somewhere in this system have that as part of, you know, the regroup, like your, so we do
Yes.
identify the incidents and what.
yes,
Then the next part over there, what has been done, like
Yes.
the list of, okay, we regroup, we send home, we meet with the parents.
yes.
We got referral to
Yes.
special resources, and will that be available?
That will be documented. I
Okay.
don't know if it will necessarily be in here, but that's a conversation that I can have. Because it is really interesting if, oops.
But the reason why I asked, because it seems like you can have access to so it's literally a profile for a child.
Yes.
Individual.
Yes,
So all those categories.
Yes,
supposed
because-
to be.
right. And so part of that comes to, parents well, no, all of you should have received a text from me today about a survey for our ESSER money. Remember, we talked about that? And if you haven't had the opportunity to answer the questions yet, one of the questions is pick the top 5 areas that you think we should allocate our funds. And I've gotten a handful of people that have filled it out right now. And one of the items was about social emotional support in terms of counseling, therapy, those types of things. And so that's a big component that our families are saying, and or teachers who have responded are saying, we need to make sure that we're investing in this. And we've talked about this, that I can't focus on academics if I am not able to focus on my own social and emotional welfare. And if I've got a lot of things going on, whether it's at home or in class, I need to be able to learn how to, and to be supported in terms to self-manage. How can I support that? How can I then get myself back into the mode to where I can focus on academics? So yes, I understand the need for us to be able to say, okay, we want to make sure, because part of it too is like, as we think about, if incidences are occurring out in the yard, but they're not occurring in the classroom, then those are things that we need to be aware of. What are we not doing on the yard that is making these incidents happen? And so that's part of collecting that data as well. So I will let me do some more research, and at our next
Okay.
board meeting, I'll come back and talk about ways that we can document that in a meaningful way, so that it is used as information for us to, yeah.
Yeah.
And how is the social emotional part broken down?
So I don't know the answer to that yet, because I just found out that they have their own survey, and so they're gonna send me information about what that survey actually looks like. And then I will share that with you. And my hope is that it's somewhat cost effective so that we can utilize it, because we need something. And I could go and draft something, but I'd prefer to use something that's research-based and has,
It's
you know,
already there.
exactly, is already done, and
Yeah.
they know how to analyze it.
Right.
And so, yes.
Yeah, you hit on a good point. Obviously, if a student is not in a place emotionally, they're not going to be in a place to learn. So, because I was looking at the data points, right beneath academic data is discipline data.
Right,
And so I just want to not only, obviously, as you said, the student themselves, if they're having issues emotionally,
Mhm.
getting them the counseling services first
right,
before we can expect them to
absolutely.
achieve academically. But then at the same time, when, and I brought this up before of just like lost instructional time, because I've actually had students come up and talk to me about it. And that's one of the reasons why I was asking if there's any data being collected in the classroom, because then hopefully we could get more resources
Yes.
to that teacher,
Yes.
if it's a specific classroom.
Yes,
Or obviously, if the child is in multiple classrooms.
yes,
Then make sure that we're allocating
Yep.
them across the board. So
Yes.
that's why I'm seeing, obviously the regroup and refresh is great to know, but then just also making sure that we're tracking that, because the last thing we want to do is we want to serve every student. So we want to serve the students that need the SEL support, but we also want to make sure that the students that are ready to learn are able to continue their academic goals. So,
well, and our jobs are to ensure that kids, when they leave us and they go to, like, my job as a high school principal was to ensure that my kids, when they graduated, they had choices. It didn't matter to me if they chose to go to the military, a 2-year college, a 4-year college, take a gap year, go get a job, made no difference to me. As long as when they left, they got to make that choice. And it wasn't when I left, all I can do is go get a job,
right.
because I don't have other options. And so the same thing holds for us, is our goal should be when they leave us in the 8th grade, they should be reading at grade level. They should be able to socialize with their peers. They should be able to have options, which is why I'm excited about our electives that we're sharing, so that they can have an idea of, oh, this is something that excites me, so that I might be able to focus on something when I go into high school. So I know that one of the questions in the SEL survey for little kids, it's phrased in terms of something like what you're learning. I can't remember how it's phrased for little, but middle school, it asks them, what are you learning in class? Is it preparing you for high school? And in high school, the question might be, do you know what courses you need to take in order to graduate? Do you know what courses you need to take in order to go to college? And so it's a similar question, but it's phrased differently depending upon the grade level that's actually taken.
So my understanding is this data can come as a whole group,
Mhm.
that means the whole school. Then it's broken down into class level, and then to
Individual
the
students.
child.
And any demographic that we want to ask.
Okay.
And so when I present data to you, it will be from a big picture standpoint. So I can present our attendance data, our enrollment data, I can break it down by ethnicity, I can break it down by grade level, I can break it down, say our chronic absenteeism, this is how it is by ethnicity. I can break down our discipline data by whether they're ELs, whether they have an IUP, whether they, however we want to break it down. I just can't, to the board, present anything farther than large groups. So for example, if there's less than 10 kids, I probably wouldn't present it because we're so small. It'd be very easy to figure out who those 10 kids are, but I can present from a larger number. Yes.
What about inter-district students? Would that be?
Yes, that will be in there as well. And at our next board meeting, I will be presenting how our 94 interdistrict students have an impact on our budget.
And it's a good way to detect those children's, we always concerned about students that needs more help in it, but we're forgetting our advanced students. From there, the advanced ones, what do we do for them? Would there be part of the plan? What else can we do so that they don't get bored?
Well, and that's where the personalization comes in terms of thinking about as an individual student, and thinking about like universal design. How do I design a lesson that meets the needs of the multiple children in my classroom who all have different needs? The 6 of us, if we were to go into a class for welding or algebra or literature, we would all learn very differently. And so in order for us all, because our goal is for everybody to be successful, we want to make sure that we have enough avenues to support each one of our individual needs.
On the back of that, below grade level, does it separate it by subject?
I'm sorry, ask that question one more time.
On the graph that indicates some students under grade level. does
Yeah, it was specific by subject. It was by, so it was twofold. One was by ELA and by math in terms of overall ELA and overall math. And then it breaks it down by strand. So within ELA, there was phonics, comprehension. So you might have a student who is at or above grade level in terms of phonics, but is at or below grade level in terms of comprehension, depending upon how they did. And then the other piece is using that information specifically like with the iReady in terms of it's diagnostic and we give it 3 times a year, is sitting down with kids and having a conversation with them that says, I want you to do the best job you can so that I can support you, so that I can find out what you need, because I need, so there, for example, when they take the iReady, it will flag it if they finished it too quickly. And it'll say to you, you might want to sit down with this student and have them take it again, because this data might not be accurate, unless they did it really quickly and they got everything right. Then you know, okay, then they're okay. But more often than not, if they do it too quickly, they're not getting the right answers. And so that's a flag for you to say, I don't really know if this child did the best that they could have. You might want to have them do it again. And we want to have that conversation with students because we want them to know, I'm not giving you a test just to fill your time. I'm not giving you a test just to give you a test. This is the information that is going to help the 2 of us get you to the next grade.
Would it be possible to ask data zones if they, I mean, I'm sure they have user group logins and they could potentially set up because to your point, the board shouldn't have full access legally,
Right.
whatever we legally should, but it would be nice for the board to have just direct access to whatever we're allowed to, like the dashboards, the big picture stuff. And because it is real time, it's like at any moment when we're at home and we're like, we have a free moment to actually analyze the data, it'd be great to have the most current access so we can just log straight in and have like a dashboard access, so a board dashboard.
I will ask that question.
That'd be great.
And to your point, though, I would, if we are capable of doing that, then that would be what we would post on our website.
Yeah.
So whatever, like this information is public. Our
Right.
enrollment numbers by grade makes no difference who sees that. We want people to see what our ethnic breakdown is. We want people to, so there are certain pieces of information that absolutely can be posted.
Yeah.
And so I will ask if there are access levels, how that can be granted. I don't know what the answer is, but it's absolutely something I can look into. Yes.
And then definition again on the ABCs of data zone. What is early warning?
So for example, on the SEL or on attendance, it tells you, it triggers it like if you're at a certain number of days within the beginning of the year, it's giving you an early warning.
Okay.
It's saying, hey, you might want to be aware of this child, that if this child continues at this rate, they're going to end up at chronic absenteeism.
And chronic absenteeism is what percentage?
Anything above 10% of the days that they are enrolled in school.
Okay.
So for example, if we have a student that enrolls with us in October and there's only 160 days of school left, any absences over 16 is considered chronic absenteeism. But in 180, then any absences over 18.
But I'm wondering, I'm wondering if they give you access to set those flags, like if we could customize and say, we want to see any student that goes over 5% of absenteeism.
I will have to ask for clarification on what those, because for example, if you look at attendance,
Can you tell the day of the week that most absences are?
you can look, yes.
Like Friday.
Or Wednesday, because it's a minimum day. So this is by grade, and then let's look at chronic absenteeism. So this is their cut marks. So severe chronic absenteeism means they have over 20%.
Oof.
Okay. At risk is, then moderate chronic is 81 to 90. Or 10 to 19.
Yeah.
The at risk is anybody that has 5 to 9% absence. So that's your cut point of the 5%. So yes, we can
Okay.
look at those students. And then satisfactory is they're here 95% of the time.
Okay,
So yes, that cut point is at 5%. So then we would want to look at all of those students that fall into those categories.
This is a really good to even explore into and reevaluate our LCAP goals.
Mhm.
Because it needs to be aligned together with this data and it can witness each other.
Right, this
you know,
data,
Because
this
we're
is,
not
this,
gonna set no high LCAP goals. And comparing to, and even looking at the data, so like, wait a minute. You're setting a really high percentage on this, but you're very low at it, but it looks like it's something that it can tie together.
yes, and they
Data
are,
zone and
like our
LCAP.
LCAP goals are based on the current data. We use that data to set the goals that we have. And keep in mind, our current LCAP is for 3 years. And at the end of this school year, we will use all of this data to tell us how did we do this year? And do we need to readjust? Do we want to add another goal? Do we want to say, oh, wait a second, we really didn't put the time and energy into this goal like we should have? And now we need to change some of the activities. And so that may mean that we pull from here, or it may mean that we use our ESSER 3 monies to focus on that particular area.
I wish it would automatically detect like, okay, child 1, this is what he needs.
Do they send
Yes,
reports? Do they
Like
automatically?
a summary, right?
Do they automatically send you reports?
No, it's a matter of us going on.
Oh. Child 1.
Yeah, so for example, I've spent the last couple of weeks making sure, checking in with them, making sure our data is accurate. I have an appointment next week for me to work with our rep from there to upload our Fountas and Pinell data so that we can have that by the end of October. So it's a matter of me and Maya, and as we roll it out, that's why I said for teachers, it's by January. I want to make sure that we've got everything up and running. Her and I have an understanding of how to utilize this, the board understands, and then we can start training our teachers on how they can use this in their classroom. Because it can be a little overwhelming sometimes.
yeah, absolutely. And back to the point of the board dashboard, and as you were mentioning, like LCAP goals, but obviously we have, addition to that, the higher level board goals.
Right.
And it would be great as part of our board dashboard if there is data that maps directly to our board goals
To
or the
connect
LCAP,
that.
to create those views.
Okay.
So we have live are we on track? Are we going up? Because it'd be great to also have historical, as it grows,
Right,
have historical data so you can do month over month comparisons.
Right.
If need be.
right. It might not be month by month, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, hey, you
But
know,
yes.
you gotta ask, you ask.
Quarterly.
And sorry, one other quick question on the data zone district implementation slide. It talks about coaches. Are those internal or external coaches?
They are external, so we have
Okay.
ELA and math coaches who come in and support our teachers. And so having them use this information to support the teachers around teaching and learning.
Okay.
Yes. That's all I
Very-
have.
Very exciting.
Individual profiles, are there any trending reports as far as absenteeism, whether or not certain months or certain seasons they are more absent than others?
Yes, we can pull that information.
There's spikes.
Yes, and you can pull that information depending upon what, well, like you said, we want to see what day of the week do we have the highest, what is the reason for that? When I first started, winter break, or sorry, Thanksgiving break, we only had Wednesday, or Thursday and Friday off, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I pulled the data to find out, are kids being pulled out on Monday and Tuesday? Should we just close for the week? And what I found was they weren't, but in some places they are. So for example, in some districts that are near mountains with snow, they have a week off in the spring or late winter, early spring, because kids were being pulled to go skiing. And so they were like, well, why are we gonna stay open if half of our kids are being pulled? We might as well just give them the week and we'll add the week someplace else. And so yes, there's pieces of it that would be great information for us to have. That's why some districts have 3 weeks at Christmas, because they have a large population that leave the country for 3 weeks. And so they said, we're not gonna penalize our students. If we know they're gonna come back in 3 weeks, then we might as well give them 3 weeks and then they come back and everybody's in school. And so those are pieces of information that we do want to analyze and look at, so that we can serve our community the best way we can.
Another ask
Yes.
for data zone, based on what Joy was asked, just see if they do have a notification component where you can enter in criteria and it'll automatically send an email address or a distribution list based off of that criteria, like a notification of like, you know.
Like when a student hits 10% or hits 5%.
Yeah, I mean, it could be used in any number of ways, positive for positive
Yeah,
feedback to basically, you know, give out accolades or, you know, oh, hey, wait, we got to cut this off at the
Or a
pass.
full report and
Yeah.
to the students that are reaching it.
Right, but yeah, okay,
I mean, they may, I don't know if they've got that kind of feature, but
I can ask.
a lot of places do. I think that was all I had for now. I'm sure as soon as we adjourn, I'll have 20 more questions. But, yeah, again, I'm most excited because I'd love to just be able to kind of, if they have like a board friendly
Mhm.
user group dashboard, then that would be great.
Yeah,
So
I
I'd
can
love to
ask.
poke around
Absolutely.
in there.
Yeah,
Is there a share feature?
what do you mean?
Like if there's a dashboard where you can automatically PDF and then.
Yes, and so that's what I was talking about, that if, like, for our attendance data, I could, but it turns into a PDF. So I'm gonna ask, so if we can't do that, then I will look at what share feature, which graphs we want, so that we can upload that information to our website. But I want to work with them. I mean, it would be great if there was a public viewpoint, because then I wouldn't have to PDF, and we know that it would be live information, because it's synced every night.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so I will definitely tomorrow send them an email and say, hey, this question came up. What is the possibility of having an access, or that just as global, because this information is information that we should be transparent about with our community on how our schools do. Yes.
I mean, yeah, whatever data is kind of legally allowed for the board members, it would make sense to let us have those dashboards. Did anyone else have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
I mean, I'm sure we could definitely
Yeah, it seems
come back and revisit this as we
Absolutely.
get more
it's a lot of
familiar with it.
information to absorb.
Yeah.
Well, one question, how were we able to compile the data prior in previous years?
What do you mean? It didn't look like this. I
Right.
had it, but it was all piecemeal. So
Oh,
like I said, I'd have to go to Ms. Bowman and say, can you
Right,
run
right.
me a report of this? Can you get me a report of this? The state might send me a report, and then I'd be all over the place, and it wouldn't necessarily.
so this would be an awesome tool to enhance
Absolutely.
across the board. And that's
Absolutely.
great.
Is it annual contract?
It is an annual contract, yes. And so, we were very fortunate. The contract actually started a couple years ago where San Mateo County Office of Ed, in essence, split the bill for the setup. And so districts did not have to pay for the setup, and now we just pay, per child. So it's based on our enrollment,
Okay.
and it's not very expensive. I'll bring the actual dollar amount to our next board meeting. And I'll hopefully have some sort of quote for the SEL survey and see if that would be something we can do as well.
Any other questions? We will move on to item 5. Are there any board reports? I'm going to save mine for the official meeting.
I didn't know we were supposed to report. so-
You don't have to.
You don't
We
have to.
another-
It's
we
just a
have just
formality.
it's- yes. We have another board meeting in 2 weeks. You can report then if you'd like.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is thanking the engine companies that helped with that fire on Acacia.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Daly City, South San Francisco, Brisbane,
Someday,
San Mateo.
Was that reported on the Citizen app? Or-
I didn't check.
My
So I had other
sister-in-law
parents said.
messaged me because she saw.
I had a
it.
first-hand view, so I didn't need the
Oh,
estimate. Okay.
Wishing us well.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Anything else? Okay, then we will adjourn at 7:14 PM.
Thank you.
Thank you.